If you asked me what my marriage looked like from above, I'd say, a city map at dusk. The streets are all there, the lights mostly working, but the legend is smudged. I'm a cartographer, urban transit, to be exact. I draw routes that make strangers less lost. I like angles and scale bars and the way a line can be honest if you let it. My wife, Eva, writes novels. When we met, the fit felt clever. I made maps, she made worlds. On our first date, she told me that good fiction is truth with the doors rearranged. I told her good maps are lies that help you arrive. We laughed like we'd witnessed something tender take shape. 8 years later, I learned the hard way that rearranged doors can slam. It started a year ago with an innocuous thing. A box from a publisher, plain brown, no return address beyond a New York zip. Eva said it was research books, waved me off with a smile I'd seen before parties curatorial, like she was adjusting a gallery wall. She took the box to her office and closed the door. To make this make sense, you should know two things. One, Eva's last book did well enough that strangers recognized her glasses and said nice things in Whole Foods. Well enough that her editor Noah began to appear in our lives like weather, sometimes urgent New York rain, sometimes easy Los Angeles wind, always slightly different from the precise climate we lived in. 2. I am not jealous by nature. I have never been the man who checks phones. I also know how arrogance wears the coat of trust and calls it virtue. Still, the box bothered me, not because it was secret, but because the secret was curated. A few nights later, Eva had a late writing sprint with her accountability group. She kissed my cheek, grabbed her laptop, and left a breath that smelled like mint tea. I scanned bus stop feedback until midnight and fell asleep in my office chair. At 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of her office door, not opening, closing. I heard the soft slide of tape, the kind you use when you seal a gift. In the morning, her office was normal, a plant we kill and resurrect every few months, a bulletin board of quotes, a ceramic dish full of paper clips shaped like hearts that stick to your fingers. On her desk, the same brown box, closed now, with a strip of clear tape like a scar. The label read, Advanced Reader, Copy Not for Resale. It's hard to describe the flavor of dread when it is still gentle, like a word you've mispronounced your whole life and just learned the truth of. I lifted the lid. Inside were 6 paperbacks, a white cover, a black title. The Fiction of Us. The author line read, E.K. Hart. Eva's pen name. The font was clean enough to cut yourself on. I thumbed open the first copy. On the title page, a dedication. For those who keep their secrets like flowers pressed in a book flat, fragile, fragrant, and stolen. The first paragraph nearly made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was ours. A description of our first apartment's bathroom window, the one that never closed all the way, that sang in the wind like a throat with a cold. A detail so obscure you could only know it by living it. The second paragraph took that laugh away. The main character, Mrs. Charney, was married to a man named Mary M. He was described as a cartographer of small tyrannies, a phrase so elegant I wanted to underline it just to punish it. He arranged plates by diameter. He color-coded Post-its. He corrected the distance between vases like this was the only way to keep his mind from sliding. I flipped pages. MM turned down the music at parties. Mam timed her showers. Mano corrected her grammar like he was rearranging her mouth. On page 43, the book recounted, almost verbatim, the night we lost a pregnancy. In the novel, takes the hospital's spare blanket and folds it, and folds it, and folds it until it becomes an accusation. In the novel, turns grief into an exhibit. In our real life, I folded because my hands needed a task that wasn't breaking. I closed the book so fast the room buckled. Before I could think, I pulled a second copy and cracked it in the middle. A sex scene, not with mum. A rooftop. A man with careful hands. No details that would make me a villain I could point to and say, this is a lie. Just a tenderness I hadn't felt described in a long time. The man had a name, Noah. Sometimes betrayal knocks with a bouquet. Sometimes it sends you a galley. I put the books back in the box, taped it as cleanly as she had, and went to work. I spent the day moving colored lines between stations that exist and stations that will someday exist if voters decide to believe in the future. At lunch, I couldn't remember how mouse worked. At 5, I messaged our therapist to ask if she had emergency slots, then deleted the message because the version of me who asked for help at 5 p.m. on a Tuesday felt like a stranger. That night, I watched Eva eat clementines and scroll. She laughed at something only her screen could see. I asked how the sprint went. Good, she said. We talked process. Then she looked up and something in her face, some softness, closed like a door. You okay? She asked. Here is a cruel truth. Mid-betrayal, most people are kind. Yes, I said, because what was I going to do? Put the book on the table like a grenade and pull the pin with my teeth? Instead, I waited. I told myself I would talk to her after I had read it all, that I would be fair, that I would not become the man her book said I was by becoming him. So I read it, in the garage, in the back seat of my car, like a teenager hiding a magazine, in the bathroom with the shower running, because I am that cliche now. I annotated like a student at the end of a semester. Green ink for truth, red ink for distortions, a black star in the margins for every place she used something I had told her in therapy. There were many stars. On page 139, she used my mother's habit of humming when she lied. On page 220, she used our private joke about lemons. On page 277, she made a villain of my need for quiet. Here's the wildest part. The book was good. Eva is very, very good at what she does. The sentences breathed in a way my maps never could. I felt bad for the person I was being turned into, precisely because I was being turned into something well-made. About 3/4 through, I reached the acknowledgement page. I expected something like, thank you to Noah for the gentlest edits, and thank you to my husband for tolerating the long night I married. Instead, to N for the rooftop and the careful hands, to M for teaching me that stories can be exit signs. I put the book down and was sickened to the sink. Noah's name I knew. He and Eva texted with the ease of colleagues who have forgotten where the line was. Workshops, travel, festivals. A handful of photos on her phone with a man whose hands looked like they had never done anything unkind. Noah, the one who believed in her genius when she nearly gave up. Noah, whose advice, she told me once, felt like being seen by a mirror that doesn't distort. I told myself I wasn't threatened. I told myself a lot of things that week. When I finally confronted her, I did it badly. Dusk, our kitchen smelling like the onion she always underestimates. I placed the ARC on the table and slid it toward her. She stared at the cover like it was a letter in a language she'd forgotten. What is this? I asked. A book, she said lightly, then softer. A galley. Mine. Try again. She flinched at my tone. Never a good sign. It's fiction, she said. You know how this works. Do I? She put her hand on the book like it might fly away. We talked about this. Art takes what it needs. Art doesn't take, I said. People do. We stared. Someone's car alarm in the distance tried to become a metaphor. Is there something between you and Noah? I asked finally, because the version of our life where I didn't say it felt dishonest to both reality and craft. She held my eyes. Not the way you mean. I wanted that to be enough. I wanted to take not the way you mean and turn it into a clean commute. And the way I don't mean, I asked. She exhaled. We were close. We are close. He champions my work. He understands my brain. And my brain? You love me, she said, like the words cost her. But sometimes it feels like you love me as a route to be optimized. Like if you can coordinate me correctly, the city of us will stop breaking. I laughed ugly. So you built a different city and named me the potholes. It's fiction, she repeated, then added a smaller, truer sentence. And it's also me being a coward. She touched the book with her fingertips. I didn't know how to tell you that I was writing about our loss again. I knew you'd ask me not to. I needed to. Needed to or chose to, I asked. She didn't answer. In the weeks that followed, we spoke more cleanly and more cruelly than we had in years. Couples therapy turned into a small courtroom with good lighting. Eva insisted the book was not a memoir. The characters were composites. Still, she admitted M wore too many of my shirts. She denied a physical affair with Noah. She admitted an emotional one. She used the word electric, then apologized for choosing the exact word that would wire my chest. We made rules. No midnight sprints that weren't real sprints. No private rooftop messages. No, this was mine. No use of something said in session without spoken permission, without the kindness of warning. For a while, our rules felt like a bridge we could cross. Then her publisher announced the reading series. "You don't have to go," she told me. "I won't be mad." "Don't be kind," I said. "It makes people weak." The launch was in a brick-walled store with too much good lighting, folding chairs, water in cans because plastic makes guilt visible. Eva in a navy dress that made the room arrange itself around her. Noah was there, of course he was, the way air is. He was handsome the way Helvetica is handsome. Clean, legible, modern without being gauche. He shook my hand with a squeezeless squeeze and said, "Hey, man," like men say when they want to be friends in an elevator. When Eva read, she was luminous. She did the thing she does where she looks at a point just above people's heads and makes the sentence land there like an object you can take home. She read the bathroom window passage. A murmur, half laugh, half ache ran through the room. She read the hospital scene, leaving out details that had gutted me on the page. Audience members put their hands to their throats without knowing. During Q&A, a woman asked about M. "Is he based on a real person?" she asked with the tone of someone who orders flights of wine as a personality. Eva smiled. "He's true," she said, "but not factual." It was a good answer. I felt my jaw crack anyway. When it was over, Noah introduced Eva to two influencers who looked like they could replace sleep with lighting. I slipped outside and sat on the curb in my jacket like a teenager who'd been grounded by God. After a minute, someone lowered into a crouch beside me. Noah. The angle made him briefly human. "Can I say something you will hate?" he asked. "You're already talking," I said. "It's a good book," he said, and winced, aware of the violence of a true thing at a wrong time. "And you weren't kind to her, either." There are sentences that hit like weather. I wanted to deck him or hug him or ask for craft notes. Instead, I said, "Is there something you need to confess?" He didn't flinch. "I love her mind," he said. "I won't deny that. But I am not the man on the roof of your marriage." He paused. "Not physically." "Congrats," I said. "Stop crouching. It makes us look like we're starting an indie band." He laughed through his nose. "She told me you make maps," he said. "I love that. The idea that someone has to decide where people get to change trains." "I don't decide," I said. "I trace. Biggest lie people tell about maps is that they lead. They follow." Noah nodded like he could take a compliment in an insult and fold them both into a line edit. "She's sorry," he said. "She doesn't know how to say it without losing the part of herself she used to survive." "And I'm supposed to, what? Applaud her method?" "You're supposed to decide if you want to be in the second draft," he said. God help me, it was a good line. I left before she finished signing. In the car, my annotated copy of the ARC waited on the passenger seat like a quiet animal. Back home, I took it to my office and laid it on my drafting table. I removed all the sticky notes and arranged them by color on the cutting mat. I smoothed the cover the way you smooth a wrinkled shirt before forgiving a person for leaving it there. And then I did something I hadn't planned. I wrote in the white space of the dedication, "You turned me into a story and expected me to be grateful for the immortality. I will give you a truer map. You didn't cheat with a man. You cheated with a draft. You made a version of me you could control and then punished me for not fitting it. Here is my confession. I made a version of you, too, one who would always say yes to being carried. We both wrote each other into corners. I am walking out." I closed the book and put it in a padded envelope. On the front, EK Heart Care of Events, Descoing. No return address. I mailed it at a blue box 2 blocks from our house, the kind with a throat that swallows. If the story ended there, it would be a sad urban tale, 2 people losing each other by writing too well about the wrong parts. But life is rarely kind enough to give you a clean ending when it owes you one. There was one more chapter neither of us outlined. 2 weeks later, Eva asked me to meet at our usual diner. She was early, a habit she insists is a love language. On the table, a book, the final, retail copy, with her name shiny. My annotated ARC sat on top, the envelope flattened beside it, like evidence in a museum of crimes committed by people who loved each other and weren't sure what that meant. "I read your note," she said simply. "Twice." She pushed the ARC toward me. I noticed tears in the paper where one of my sticky flags had taken a bit of the page with it. "You were kinder in the margins than I was in the text," she added. "I was angry when I mailed it," I said. "I know," she said. "I circled the anger. That's where the true parts were." We ate eggs we didn't taste. The waitress called me sweetheart the way women over 50 make everyone safe. Eva looked at me like you look at the skyline of a city you're about to leave. Grateful, devastated, wanting a photograph to capture a geometry that won't survive tomorrow. "I'm not asking you to stay," she said. "I'm asking you to read one more thing." She slid me a folded sheet. A new dedication, printed on her letterhead. "Second printing only," it said at the top. I read, "For M, who mapped me honestly when I was making exits. For N, who taught me where the roof ends. For anyone who has ever turned a person into a draft, may your edits be merciful." I laughed because otherwise I would cry too hard to speak. "That's a good sentence," I said. "I know," she replied, almost smiling. "I'm very good at this." We paid. On the sidewalk, the city sounded like a soft machine. I told her I was moving out by the end of the month. She said she already found a sublet for me near the park, 3 stops away. "On your line," she added, as if that mattered, which in our private language it did. We hugged the way people hug when they are practicing not to own each other's bodies anymore. Before she let go, she whispered, "You were never the villain, you know." In my ear, it sounded like a sentence from a draft we would never agree on. Time passed in the way it does when you water plants that don't belong to you anymore. She toured, I packed. Noah sent an email that should have been hard to read but wasn't. "We'll be careful with you in public spaces." He didn't owe me that. Maybe that's why it mattered. On my last morning in our apartment, I took down the framed transit map we bought when we moved in. A clean diagram of colored lines without streets, just routes and nodes. In the lower right corner, a small red dot and the words, "You are here." I peeled the dot away carefully and placed it on a blank index card. I wrote, "I am here." I left it on the kitchen table under her mug, the one that says, "Write like it's a verb." I won't lie and tell you leaving made me noble. It made me small for a while. I learned how to eat at a new counter. I learned where the light hits the park at 5 p.m., when the dog walkers become a parade. I learned that quiet can be generous when it's not doing the job of protection. I started sleeping through the hour I used to wake to listen for her keys. A month later, she texted me a photo from a bookstore in a town we never visited together. The second printing dedication. My name's letter. No flourish, no apology, just a change. Beneath it, her text. I know it's not enough, but it's honest. I typed and deleted for a minute, then wrote, "Honesty is a route. I'll take it." Now when people ask me what happened, I tell them a version that doesn't hurt anyone more than necessary. That 2 artists married and learned late that love is not a first draft. That we were both guilty of turning the other into a character we could survive. That she did not cheat with a man. She chose a story over a person, and I chose to stop being its villain. Last week, I went to her reading again, this time in our city, in a smaller store with worse lighting. I stood in the back and watched strangers hold her words like small, warm animals. During Q&A, a young man asked how to write about someone he loved without hurting them. Eva took a long breath. "You can't," she said. "Not entirely. But you can decide what part of the hurt belongs to you." She glanced toward the back, toward me. Our eyes met for an honest second. "And you can refuse to pretend your fiction is more important than their fact." After, I slipped out. On the sidewalk, the city map of winter settled over us. Steam, bare trees like handwriting. I walked to the train and didn't check the schedule. I knew the rhythm by heart. In the window's dark reflection, I saw a man who looked older than his age and kinder than his worry. He looked like someone who could be loved by a sentence without being swallowed by it. When I got home to my smaller place, I taped the little red dot from our old map to the wall above my desk. I opened a blank document and wrote one line. This time I will not draw the other person as an exit. I don't know if this is a love story or an apology or a map. I only know that I am trying to be truthful without rearranging any doors I'm not willing to knock on. If I have learned anything, it's this. People are not drafts, and if you forget that, they will walk off the page. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you. It means a lot. New stories like this one are posted every single day, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss one. And if this story touched you, please give it a like. It really helps more people find our content.